Howdy, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. This is week two of our 9th season. On week 1, there were football games. There were actual football games. A few of them had fans. Some of them did not. There were a lot of masks, and there were some not masks, and it was very weird, but also kind of cool, right, Carla?
Yeah, football happened somehow, remarkably, And you know, I keep cautioning. I'm like, okay, now we find out in 2 weeks how exactly this is all going to work, right?
Right.
That's the catch in all of this, is that we just kind of have to wait and see how everything plays out. But you know, we got one weekend of college football in, and it was actually pretty entertaining.
There was some fun stuff. The SMU Texas State game.
Yes.
Went back and forth a bunch. That was a good one.
The Fun Belt strikes again.
Yeah, go figure. I'm going to take a moment for some mild gloating. Since Army had rolled over middle on Saturday, and I was surprised about that. And I should point out also, since we have definite size about this, that Navy did not roll against BYU. We both got that one wrong, along with everybody in Las Vegas, apparently.
Yeah.
What did you think of the football you saw?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have no idea is holding up so far.
Yes.
We've done well in that regard. In the fact that I got just about everything wrong this weekend. But that's the first week of the season, and in a weird off season, that's kind of what happens. I too was quite enamored with the Texas State SMU game. I think from a competition standpoint, that was the best game of the weekend.
Yeah, probably.
As the two of
the games that I saw, at least, yeah.
Yeah, the back and forth, and the fact that SMU couldn't really close the door on that game until, pretty late in the fourth quarter made that game much more entertaining than we were expecting, especially after coming after the Army MTSU game that was just not pretty at all. But hey, at least MTSU didn't have the worst loss of the weekend. That goes to Navy.
Yeah,
that was a team that didn't look like it was ready to play football, and Coach Ken admitted that after the game. That they hadn't been doing any tackling drills. Leading into this.
They talked about that on the broadcast a little bit, and he's like, "Wow, that's a recipe for looking like this against a good team."
Yeah, and BYU, and it's an interesting conversation now about BYU, right? Like we talked about this last week about Notre Dame, and we're going to talk a little more about Notre Dame later. But here you have an actual independent who's playing an independent schedule, who's had its entire season just kind of blown up, and so it's only playing the games that are available to them, and they've put together a schedule. They've got 8 games on the schedule right now. Arguably, Navy last night, we're recording this on Tuesday, so on Monday night, Navy on Monday night, and then a week from now when BYU plays Army, those are arguably the 2 toughest opponents on the BYU schedule. Yeah. It's going to be a really interesting conversation if BYU can play Army as well as it played against Navy.
Absolutely.
What happens if we end up with an undefeated BYU team at the end of the season? How does that factor into the playoff? Right? Like, I mean,
there's going to be fun stuff.
Who's going to beat BYU after Army? Troy? No. Like,
right.
Maybe Houston. Houston might give them a game because Houston is on the schedule in October, I think I saw today. So Houston might give them a bit of a stumbling block possibility, but what happens if BYU runs the table? If there's a playoff and BYU is undefeated and there's nothing they can do about their schedule, they can't do anything about it this year.
They play the schedule they got.
Exactly. Play the schedule that they were able to put together at the last minute. Are they in the conversation? Maybe. Who knows? It's gonna be really interesting.
Say it with me, boys and girls. We have no idea.
No idea.
I did want to mention Army just because defense actually was the thing, and that was a pleasant surprise. I told you, I think Army's ideal game would be to score 1 touchdown per quarter, hold the ball forever, and and give up a touchdown or 2, and that's what they want to accomplish. But the defense was much better than that, and that's a nice step up from last year when they struggled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So they played a solid game, held Middle to under 200 yards offense, or about 200 yards. Grabbed 4 turnovers. And I know I just scored it from at least a couple of those, scored turnovers into touchdowns. But as you said, Army has Louisiana Monroe this week, so that's not going to be the test. The following 2 weeks against BYU and then against Cincinnati. And then, yes, we will find out. BYU could be ranked by then, maybe. Cincinnati is ranked right now, even though the Bearcats haven't played a game yet. So I'm not ready to put Army, in a New Year's Six bowl or anything like that yet. But that's a nice start. I was impressed with my adopted team for whatever the 2020 season turns out to be.
Hey, based on what we saw on the field this week, BYU's the number 1 team in the country and Army's number 2, right? If you're going just on this past weekend.
Yes, I'm in. Yes, absolutely. I don't have a vote, but I agree completely.
So we start seeing some more teams this week. BYU should get the number 1 ranking.
And it's interesting. I don't know how the AP poll is working. It has not been updated this week, so I don't know if they're going to do the AP poll until Power 5 conferences start playing this weekend. But I noticed, just looking at stuff that it's still the preseason poll with a whole bunch of teams that aren't playing at all, at least not yet. So we'll see what our friends of the Associated Press decide to do with that one. We have games to discuss, including including Power 5 conferences this weekend. A couple of those are getting started. Before we get to those, we have the Group of 5 After Dark report. We'd like to welcome back AJ for this season's G5 report. AJ, go.
Hello, everyone. It is your good friend AJ, and I am back for the 2020 Group of 5 report. And let's be really honest, everybody. This is the only football going anymore. The Big Ten's canceled. The ACC is just kind of listless. It's Clemson and whoever else is in that conference. The SEC ain't gonna play football till October or whatever. The Big 12 is the Big 12. So you're here. It's Group of 5 football. This is what you need. You got to eat the whole hog. And speaking of the whole hog, let's go take a look at some of the Group of 5 games that you should probably keep an eye on, just because some of these might get interesting. Up first, at noon Eastern Time, 11 Central Time, we have the University of Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns going to Ames to play Iowa State. Who made Iowa State number 23? I mean, Matt Campbell's done a great job, but who made Iowa State number 23? That's just a recipe for disappointment. Iowa State is scheduled to win this game by 11.5 with an over-under 56.5. Louisiana is the last team to beat the hated Red Hawks of Miami of Ohio. This could be a very, very good game. It could also be your traditional cupcake game. Would you like a sense of normalcy? This might be it. We also have the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs going to Waco to play Baylor at noon on Saturday. Baylor is picked to win this game by 18. Again, could be a cupcake game, could be something fun. Louisiana Tech coming off a bowl win versus the University of Miami, not Miami of Ohio. Louisiana Tech, this is always a good program. They're always 10-3. They're always 9-2, something like that. That math doesn't work, but it's one of those teams that is just always very good. I don't particularly think Baylor is a great team. I think Louisiana Tech could make this fairly close. You should probably keep an eye on this game. This game is on Fox. And finally, we're going to finish it off with a battle for North Carolina. I don't care what anybody in the Triangle has to say. University of Charlotte, the 49ers, going to Boone to play App State at noon on ESPN2. Y'all want to see a dead body? Because that's what App State will probably do to Charlotte. App State is an incredible football team, They deserved a lot more love than they got last year. They've suffered one loss. I believe it was actually on homecoming too. App State was very clearly in the running for the Group of Five Power or New Year's Six bowl spot toward the end of the year. App State is always very good. Charlotte, not as good. I do recommend tuning into this. The noon spot filled with Group of Five love. And one more game before we get out of here is UAB at Miami on Thursday, September 10th. This could be the biggest game of the week, mostly because UAB is the only team to beat a team that has beaten somebody else. So their RPI off the charts right now. UAB Miami could be good. There's a potential where Miami starts the year disappointingly. Stop me if you've heard that before. That's not necessarily to say that Miami is going to be distinctly bad, but Miami has always sometimes struggled, really, with trying to get off of the ground very quickly. Right now, Miami is favored by 14.5 with an over-under 54.5. I honestly don't know much about Miami to be able to say that. UAB is 1-0. I know a little bit more about UAB than I do about Miami. It's on the ACC network, and it's football on a Thursday. What more could you ask for? Crappy and Carla, I'm going to turn it back to them, will tell you a lot more about Power 5 football. Football that is very, it's not important at all, right? Group of Five is where the heart is. So this has been your Group of Five report, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Mr. Kufkick. Okay, kids, let's take look at our games this week. We have two that shouldn't be especially competitive, but will give us looks at teams that could be contenders. One definitely contender, and one might be. And then we have one game that could just be a fun thing. But, again, we have no idea. Let's start in South Bend at 2:30 p.m. on Saturday. Duke at number 10. There's a ranking. Notre Dame is favored by 20. Carla, what do you think?
Yeah, welcome to the ACC, Notre Dame.
Suck.
Yeah. You've already contradicted what you said last week when you kind of maybe sort of something or other.
I am not. I would clarify this. I am not cheering for Notre Dame. And under no circumstances do I cheer for Notre Dame. But I do. But there is one traditional power school in the Midwest that is playing at this point in the season, and it's the Irish. So it's they are the representative of sort of. Now I'm digging myself in a hole here. I'm not cheering for Notre Dame. I think they're going to be good, and I think and I'll get into more detail about this. And I think playing in the ACC is going to help them. But no, not a Notre Dame fan.
No, okay. I'll try to hold you to that this season.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay. So yeah, Duke and Notre Dame are actually like common opponents. This game was actually on the schedule already for this year. It was just later in the season, and they moved it up when the ACC decided they were only going to play a conference schedule, and they added more conference games. So this game got moved up. So these two teams have met frequently in the past. This is a general consistent opponent for Notre Dame. They met last year on November 9th, and Notre Dame routed Duke 38-7. And we talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about potential Final Four teams. 12th year senior Ian Book, at least it feels like it, right? Ian Book still at Notre Dame.
Yes.
So he's still at Notre Dame, still leads that Notre Dame offense. And like you mentioned last week, like the Notre Dame offense doesn't have to be spectacular. Ian Book just has to be solid. Like that's just as if Ian Book is solid, that Notre Dame offense is going to do really, really well in an ACC schedule. And they're going up against a Duke team that, okay, Duke's defense should be pretty solid, but it's almost, it wasn't all that long ago these two teams met, and there's not a lot of difference between these teams right now. And we saw what Notre Dame did to them last year. The big variable in this game is the Duke offense. They picked up Chase Bryce, the former backup at Clemson, to be their starting quarterback. But Bryce has had limited reps with the offense because of COVID regulations, and so he couldn't participate in spring practice because there was no spring practice, and then so he's only had this little bit of fall to kind of get settled into this new offense. And throw another wrinkle into everything. Duke just lost its center last week to an injury. So we have an offense that hasn't had a lot of experience. And we saw what that did to Navy.
Yeah.
Like not getting reps. Like we all just kind of washed that over, like saying it's not going to be that big of a deal. These kids have played football for all their lives. It's going to be just fine. Now we're finding out maybe that's not the case.
Does not work that way.
So I don't see any way that this doesn't end up in a Notre Dame win. It might be closer than the line is expecting because, Duke's got a pretty solid quarterback, but he doesn't know that offense. He's working with a brand new center, and now he's working with another brand new center. And Notre Dame is going to win this football game.
Okay. I agree. I mean, unless the ball is orange and round, Duke is not going to win. We'll say that off the top. Bryce is interesting. I mean, he had a couple moments of glory in relief of Trevor Lawrence at Clemson recently. So I mean, he's a solid quarterback, but again, that is a tough position to be in. I was another Clemson transfer, and his name I'm not going to remember. But I was really high on Northwestern last year going into the season. And we got to see firsthand that, picking up a new system, working with new teammates is not an automatic thing. And Bryce may be facing a similar situation. He's going to have a chore on his hands because Notre Dame's defense, the strength of Notre Dame's defense, is the front seven, especially on the line. The Irish need to find a better pass rush than they had a year ago, but they have guys up who are playing on the line that have been there forever. Not quite as long as Ian Book, but who has been. I mean, Brian Kelly has been at Notre Dame as long as Ian Book has, but that's about it. On the offensive side, you mentioned Ian Book, the close personal friend of my former intern, who is also a senior at Notre Dame. He will have some help. 6 returning regulars on the offensive line. I mentioned this last week. The line play that's Notre Dame's strength. Those guys are going to keep Book's jersey clean. Should give him a running game to help him support, and that will help as less experienced, skilled guys, especially receivers, kind of figure things out. For this week, that's all they're going to need. And I think Notre Dame's going to win this pretty handily. 20 may or may not be the number, but this should not be a tough game for the Irish. And then if you look at the schedule, and I didn't get into this last week, but they may not get tested until November. In November, they have games against Clemson and UNC in over a 3-week stretch. That may be the first time that if you're looking at this stuff that Notre Dame really gets tested. But again, to be clear, they're not going to get tested on Saturday. They will win this one pretty handily. We at 3:30 on Saturday we go to our interesting game. Largely because we have no idea. This is Georgia Tech at Florida State. The Seminoles are favored by 12.5 points. We don't play the games on paper. I mean, Florida State should win this if we're playing on paper. But Carla, that just doesn't work that way, does it?
It doesn't, especially when you're looking at a Florida State team with another new head coach. I mean, this is something we're not used to seeing out of Florida State, right? This is their third head coach in 4 seasons. Welcome to the fray, Mike Norvell. Let's see how you do. And this is a Florida State team that's really looking for an identity. And they've really kind of been looking for an identity for the last couple of years, particularly in the ACC, after they had, those heroic years, not all that long ago, right? I mean, it feels like it really was only about 5 years ago when Florida State was in the mix for everything. Kind of the power of Florida. Mm-hmm. At the time, and now again last year they lost the Sun Bowl. They finished 6-7, a losing record again. So the Seminoles are really kind of looking for some sort of consistency. The one place that they do have some consistency is James Blackman at quarterback. He's back this year. He's returning. So it'll be interesting to see how this offense comes together. And then the Florida State defense should be pretty good. Their defensive tackle Marvin Wilson was named all conference preseason, and he actually received the most number of votes of any player on that on the defensive preseason. So he's widely respected around the conference to have gotten the most number of votes for that. And so defensively, Florida State should be okay. It's just whether or not this team can actually just kind of gel as a team. And talk about an uphill road to climb. Trying to put together when your problem isn't necessarily talent, it's chemistry and system, and trying to put those things together in a time when there's no such thing as system or chemistry because we're dealing with a pandemic. Like, there's a lot. There's a lot of kind of variables in this game. I mean, Florida State's playing at home. But again, we talked about this last week. What's a home field advantage at this point? They're going to let some fans in the stands, from what I could tell. It looks like they're going to limited capacity, so there will be people there. Okay, so that might help a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot of unknowns about Florida State, but there's also just as many unknowns about Georgia Tech. This was a team that was not predicted to perform well this year. They were picked dead last in the ACC in the preseason. And this is not the Georgia Tech that we are used to. Georgia Tech no longer runs the triple option.
Right.
And we saw how well that worked for them last year, right? It didn't. And so this is a team that, it's going to take a couple years before the players that were recruited to play triple option have aged out of the program, and they get different players in that are a little bit more accustomed to a more traditional offensive system. Like, it's just going to take some time. They have the interesting side story here is that the likely starting quarterback, and apparently as of just a few hours ago, Georgia Tech still has not named a starting quarterback for Saturday. So that bodes well.
It's me, actually. I don't want it's a scoop, but I didn't want to talk about it, but it's going to be me.
Well, we were kind of laughing about the fact that eventually we are going to start having like 27, 28-year-olds starting at quarterback for certain teams.
At some point that can happen, yes.
It's probably going to happen, and we're getting closer every day. But anyhow, so the presumed starting quarterback for Georgia Tech on Saturday is a kid by the name of Jeff Sims. He's a freshman. The intrigue about him is the fact that he decommitted from Florida State to sign with Georgia Tech. So that's a little saucy little side note to kind of play along with here, especially, if he is named the starter, he's going to get to start in the stadium with the team that he walked away from to go play at Georgia Tech. So that's a little interesting. I think there's too much experience on the Florida State sideline. And as we've learned from the first weekend, experience really does matter this year. People who are used to playing in together are going to have a little bit of an advantage here. And I realize there's been a coaching change and there's going to be some changes, but there's more seniority on the Florida State sideline. So I'm going to lean Florida State, but this game could be incredibly close, closer than everybody is thinking, just because, again, we don't have any idea about either of these teams. But I'll say Florida State at home with the experienced quarterback under center is going to get the edge.
Okay. The thing about Tech, when you make the transition from a triple option to a more pro style offense, is that you need different kind of players. And Tech can but Tech can run an option offense with smaller guys, with guys who are referred to as scrappy. They can run that offense successfully with the kind of people that the military academies run it with. If you're going to switch from that to a pro style offense in the ACC, you're going to need at least 3 years, probably, maybe more, to have the kind of personnel and the experience to really compete with the other teams in your conference. Because if you're, if once you have those systems leveled out, you got to have the same kind of people too. If you're going to make that, and the personnel makes this a really dicey proposition for Tech. But as you said, Florida State, and a big problem that Florida State has had, since the last couple of years of Jimbo's tenure there, has been chemistry, and it's been culture. I don't know how Mike Norvell addresses that. We have no idea. You mentioned James Blackburn. He's got plenty of experiences, but boy, he throws a lot of picks.
That's true.
You mentioned Marvin Wilson, and the D tackles group is lights out, and you're used to seeing that from Florida State. But the returning defensive ends only had 3 sacks last year. So this is a recipe for. I assume Mike Norvell has done what he can to address culture, to address the maybe a laissez-faire attitude that has plagued that program for several years now. And if he hasn't, the Seminoles could lose games like this. And I'm like you. Florida State should win this game. And I'm definitely that's my pick. But for all of those question marks, a motivated Tech team could go in there and win that. So I will pay attention to what Notre Dame is doing against Duke. But if I'm sitting and watching a game in the afternoon, this is going to be the one, because I think it's a really interesting matchup just because we have no idea.
Yeah.
Our third game, we have an idea about this one. I'm pretty sure 7:30 Saturday. I don't know how it is that Clemson has to open the season on the road, but they open at Wake Forest, where they are a 33-point favorite. Carla, what do you know about this game?
What I do know about this game is the fact that Wake Forest hasn't scored a touchdown against Clemson in 3 seasons.
Oh, that's a cool stat. I did not dig that deep into this one. That's a cool stat.
Yeah, thanks ESPN. I was doing a deep dive on their site today to do my research for this game because, I didn't feel like this game really required a whole bunch of research. When you look at a Clemson team that is returning both Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne on the Clemson offense, and you're like, and it's full of experience on that roster. It's why they were the number 1 preseason team in the country. And they're playing a Wake Forest team that, okay, so they have a little bit of experience there. Sam Hartman is going to be their starting quarterback. He started in 2018 for the Demon Deacons until he went out with a broken leg. And then he played his maximum 4 games last season in order to maintain his red shirt. So he has seen some significant experience, but it's not been consistent. And so we're gonna really kind of find out whether or not Sam Hartman what his mettle is as a quarterback, as he tries to navigate the season. The big challenge is he going to have anybody to throw the ball to? Sage Surratt, who is their kind of, top wide receiver, has opted to sit out the season due to the pandemic and to get ready for the upcoming NFL draft. So who's Hartman going to throw the ball to?
We have no idea.
We have no idea, right? The Wake defense should be pretty solid, but a solid Wake defense isn't going to slow down a Clemson offense like that enough to be able to stay in the game. So, other than the fact that Clemson's opening on the road, which, like you, it doesn't make any sense at all. Thanks, ACC.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they were shuffling things around and that happens, but still, like, let the team that was in the playoff last year, a one-year conference, open their season at home, for crying out loud. But it's not going to matter. Clemson's going to roll in this game. The only thing I really fall back on for analysis of this game is Clemsoning. It was a catch? I picked the wrong thing. It was a catch. I picked the wrong thing.
It was always. It will always be a catch. always be a catch. Clemsoning, however, that's the only possible thing that could happen here. They have a ton of experience, but they lost some to the draft. They're opening on the road instead of at Death Valley. Wake has had a respectable program in recent years, does any of that stuff Even Trevor Lawrence has a habit of kind of starting a season slowly.
That is true.
Is that enough? No, it's not. Unless there is some kind of unmitigated disaster. Clemson is not going to lose this game, and it will not be pretty. We will get a look at one of the teams that is pretty much guaranteed. I mean, if things go and you look at the schedule and things go as you would expect, guaranteed to make the playoff as the ACC champion. But take a look, see how they look this season, and kind of think about how that's going to pan out for later in the year if we get to that point.
If we were going to bring back the Clemsoning index,
yes,
which is something we haven't mentioned at all this year, and it just now occurred to me. My Clemsoning index on this game, I think, would be a 3. Not out of the realm of possibilities, but not very likely.
I think that's about right. A 3.5, somewhere in there, I think it could happen, but nah, it's not gonna.
No.
Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever Google service is called these days, Stitcher, TuneIn, and a variety of other podcasting hosts. You can watch us on YouTube or the show's Facebook page. If you like us, please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you don't, mind your own damn business. And be sure, whatever you do, to come back next week and see exactly how wrong we were. Carla, can the Browns beat the Ravens on Sunday?
I haven't even thought about the NFL season.
Sorry for the curveball. Do you have any other non-NFL related thoughts for this week?
Can the Browns beat the Ravens on Sunday?
I think they can.
I think we have no idea.
Clearly, we have no idea. We have no idea.
I think anything is possible. I would prefer both teams to lose if that was a possibility.
Steeler fans want the Browns to win on Sunday. There's no way about it. It's got to happen.
Nope. Okay.
Come on.
Long time rivalries, though. I can't do it. Can't do it.
Okay.
Can't do it.
That's fair.
I want both teams to lose.
Okay.
Yeah. So one other game I've got on my radar.
Yes.
In the evening on Saturday night, since we didn't talk, all the games we talked about were fairly early, and Clemson Wake probably isn't going to be interesting for very long. Keep your eye on Western Kentucky Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
That game's really interesting. These two teams played each other last year. The line on this game is only 11.5. And when you've got a conference USA team and an ACC team, that's kind of an interesting line that's really that close.
It is, yeah, you're right. That's tight.
And Western Kentucky has a ton of experience. They've got a Doak Walker Award candidate in Gage Walker. They got a grad transfer quarterback, Tyrell Pigrome from Maryland, is now the quarterback at Western Kentucky. So they've got some legit talent at quarterback. Oh, and they have the CUSA Defensive Player of the Year returning as well. That's a pretty decent Western Kentucky team going up against a Louisville team that was kind of on the ropes last year.
Mm-hmm.
They do have some experience, and their quarterback, Mikhail Cunningham, is a dual threat, but that game it's kind of an undercard, like entertainment level could be pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
So keep your eyes on that one on Saturday
Okay.
night.
I actually, a similar thing, and I will do my best to get the show out on Thursday in time for this to be relevant, because I'm pretty sure AJ mentioned it too. UAB at Miami.
Yeah, that game looks interesting too.
Miami's only a 14-point favorite. So I've done no analysis for this, but that's just kind of a line that gets your attention when you're talking about a matchup of those two programs. So maybe, I'm never going to tell you not to watch Thursday Night Football, being the fan of action that I am and wanting to digest as much. I want college football to wash over me as much as possible. But that might be a game worth watching, actually.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
We will see. We've got our games. We've got contenders to take a look at. We've got some interesting stuff that could happen on Saturday afternoon. And then we've got a couple little quick hits right there that should guarantee that at least this weekend, for however long the college football season lasts, should be a fun one.
And contrary to our show, which was like entirely ACC based,
yeah.
the Big 12, some teams are actually starting this weekend. So you're going to start. There's a few teams that are playing out of conference opponents. So keep your eye. I know Iowa State starts this week. Texas starts this week. Really
Oklahoma
lopsided.
is like Missouri State or something.
Yeah, like it's a bunch of cupcakes in the first week for all of these teams. That's why we didn't highlight any of those games. But but keep your eye. We're going to start seeing some Big 12 stuff too. So that'll be interesting in that.
It'll be fun. It's heating up for however long we go. Carla. Cheers. Enjoy. Here's to one more week. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see if we know anything else after this week.
We'll see if we know anything else, but basically we have no idea. Guys, thank you very much for joining us once again. Enjoy the games while they last, and be sure to come back here next week when we will talk about more stuff. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. Thank you.